the first thing we do when we get to the customer's house before we talk about solar is go through the customer's bill. We have to teach them how they're billed. And just like most people, they've never actually looked at the bill. They've only looked at the dollar amount that's on the bottom, and they go ahead and pay it every single month because what are you going to do about it, right? Do you have a way of gauging how much electricity that you use? It's not like pouring a glass of milk. You have no idea how much is left in that container, right? So let me show you guys what I mean by that. The reason why we don't tell customers we're going to eliminate their bill completely is because every single utility company requires you to stay connected to the grid. Even if you have batteries, there is no way that you could be disconnected from the grid if you're in an area where the utility company will service your area. So that is this forever charge right here. In most utility companies, this is called the forever charge or the grid charge. That charge can go up depending on your utility company. For instance, this is one of the TEP bills down here in Tucson, Arizona. This charge goes up to $20 when you get solar. The next charges are those tiered rates. So the first 1 to 500 kilowatt hours in the month is going to be billed at 7.6 cents. So right about 7.5 cents per kilowatt hour. That's going to be $38.06 in this case. The second tier is 501 to 1,000 kilowatt hours. That was billed at 9.3 cents, and you can see it there, 0.093. So it's just over 9 cents per kilowatt hour, which was an additional $46.69. And then anything over 1,001 kilowatt hours is billed again at almost 10 cents. It's 9.9 cents per kilowatt hour. That was an additional $59.08. So with most companies, they would view me as a good customer, and they would usually discount me the more I used. It's the opposite with utility companies. So we show it just like we do in this example. With tiered rates, let's kind of break this down into buckets. Okay, so as we fill up a bucket, just like if we're filling up with water, that's kind of how your utility is going to be gauged. So the first 100 to 500 kilowatt hour, 1 to 500 kilowatt hours is the first tier, 501 to 1,000 is second, 1,001 plus is tier 3. So let's buy a phone. If I go to Verizon right now and I want one phone, they'll probably charge me somewhere around $80 for service. If I want 2 phones, they're going to discount that and they're going to charge me $40 per line. If I want 3 phones or 4 phones or more, they're going to discount that again, and I'm going to get about $30 per line. I spent more, so I'm being rewarded for being a good customer. With the utility companies, as it increases, I'm looking at the first 500 kilowatt hours that I used within the first week at 6.5 cents. At tier 2, I'm at 501 to 1,000. I'm being billed 9.3 cents per kilowatt hour. At tier 3, I'm being billed again an additional charge of 9.9 cents, basically 10 cents per kilowatt hour for everything I used over. I'm being punished for being a good customer. The more you use, the more they charge you. And that is the exact opposite of what most companies do to their better customers that use more of their services. So the other charges that we talked about here were going to be like transmission and going to be the distribution charges. So we're going to be charged one way for the amount of utility that we consume, and then we have to be charged a second way for them getting it to the house. They have a very large grid that they have to supply power through. They can't just drop it off at our doors like the milkman used to drop off milk. There's no way to do that except for through the grid. So they're going to charge us some other additional charges. We have the Renewable Energy Standard Tariff, and then we have charges like our summer charges, which would be considered distribution, which is how they get it to the house. So the Renewable Energy Standard Tariff, we learned a little bit about this. Here, it's a standard charge of $7.50. Once again, we're being billed for them offering credits to people who have gone solar for their efforts to tell us to use clean energy, and for the additional incentives, and for customers who are underusing electricity. They are low users. So the less you use, the more you get rewarded, and the more you use, you're being punished and actually paying other people's bills. So let's take a look at how this actually works. So we have what's called our happy house here. Our happy house is going to start collecting sun with the panels, and it's going to be transferring it down to the inverter. This inverter is going to be converting the power from direct current to alternating current. At that point, the utility company is going to take all that power that's being produced and it's going to be brought back to the grid. So all power generated is going to be bought back at a wholesale rate. In this case, with this utility, it's 7.9 cents, almost 8 cents per kilowatt hour. That's going to be transferred back to the homeowner in the form of bill credit to help start discounting those bills and offset any utility that they're using. With all the other houses in the neighborhood, like the folks that we're going to be talking to, they have a tendency to start calling this the unhappy house themselves. They're actually going to start getting charged for all that utility that the neighbors have been producing over the course of the last several months. This is the kilowatt hour consumption. So whether it was coming from solar or it was coming from the grid, this customer is getting billed. And they're going to be billed in a utility consumption as well as renewable energy standard tariff. Now, what happened to all that bill credit? Well, that actually gathers up throughout the month and it rolls over from month to month. Utility companies are not going to let that roll over from year to year. It's going to expire and your bill credit will restart. But if you get a $100 utility bill and you have a $150 bill credit, that means that you're going to use your bill credit before they ever charge you an actual penny, which means that you still are positive $50 in bill credit. So if you overuse the next month and you have a $25 bill, you still be positive $25. This is how the happy house is presented to the customer during the bill review. Now for us, what we're looking at is all these charges get added up. So if we take a look at my actual charge itself, I'm at $245.50 here with this customer. So if I take my actual usage and I add those together, I'm being charged $143.83 for my usage, but I'm being billed $245.50. Right. So if you subtract that from the amount that you got billed, that's $101.67 in additional charges. So let's figure out what our true kilowatt hour consumption is. We're going to take the bill minus the forever charge and divide that by the usage, and that'll give us our true kilowatt hour charge. We show this to our customers. So $245.50 minus $13 divided by 1,592.55 kilowatt hours equals 15.1 cents per kilowatt hour. So I'm being showed that I'm being charged 7.5 cents, right over 9 cents, and right under 10 cents per kilowatt hour. And then my supply charges, I'm getting an additional charge for the entire amount for having this bill in the summer at 3 cents per kilowatt hour. And then the entire amount of consumption, again, for the PPFAC at another right under 3 cents per kilowatt hour, like half of a penny per kilowatt hour. And I'm actually being charged over 15 cents per kilowatt hour after all fees and charges. So even if I only use $143.83 in utility, I'm going to be stuck with $101.67. If we can get rid of these transmission and distribution charges, and the only bill that you had left was just that forever charge, how good of an investment do you think that that would be? Do you see why everybody who sits down with me usually tells me this is a no-brainer